Please marry my daughter, said my father-in-law. His statement stunned me so much that I lost all mental clarity. Har, marry, you mean me and your daughter, Emily? My ex-wife's sister is named Emily. She most likely recently received her college degree. Emily was still in middle or high school when I first met her, and I had pleasant memories of how much I loved her. The idea of me being married to Emily is simply unthinkable. After all, I don't intend to fall in love or be married again, no matter who it is. I apologize, but I am unable to accomplish it. In addition, I don't intend to be married again. For the remainder of my life, I plan to live alone. I expressed my respect by saying this. My father-in-law then said something even more unexpected. That's even better than our interests align perfectly. What? What do you mean? I'm John. 3 years ago, I lost my beloved wife, Laura. She passed away only 2 years after we got married. When my wife started feeling unwell and we went to the hospital, she was suddenly given only a year to live. Laura endured painful treatments and fought bravely. She held on 18 days longer than her prognosis, but unfortunately, she passed away. At the time, both Laura and I were just 30 years old, and we naturally imagined a happy future with children and a loving family. But all that was lost, and I couldn't harbor any hope for the future without Laura. I couldn't imagine a happy life. That's why I thought so of course I don't want children anymore, nor do I intend to engage in love or marriage. I live a modest life alone, hoping to reunite with Laura in the afterlife and finally live together. I've never been religious, but I find comfort in such thoughts. Then, 3 years later, about a week after Laura's death anniversary, I hadn't seen my in-laws much since Laura's funeral and sorting out her belongings, but they contacted me after a long time. It's been 3 years since she passed. Without thinking deeply, I went to Laura's parents' house as invited. Laura's father is the CEO of a large corporation. Laura was the daughter of the CEO, and she worked at her father's company. I joined a company as a recent graduate and met Laura there. I'm not ambitious, so I never thought about promotions or climbing the corporate ladder. I was surprised to learn after dating that Laura was the CEO's daughter. Her father liked me and even talked about me being the next CEO. But after Laura passed away, I knew I wasn't the one to take over, so I resigned from the company. It was a bit awkward meeting them again after all this time. However, what Laura's father said at their house was completely unexpected. Please marry Emily. I was so surprised that I went blank. Huh. Marry Emily? Me? Emily is Laura's sister. She must have just graduated from college or something. When Laura was alive, Emily was still in high school, and I remember how fondly I adored her. The thought of marrying Emily is just inconceivable. Regardless of who the other person is, I have no intention of falling in love or marrying again. Yet the idea of marrying my late wife's sister is bizarre to anyone. Still, for my in-laws to make such a request, there must be a significant reason behind it. But I can't agree to it, I said. I understand. There might be circumstances, but I'm sorry. I can't do it. I haven't thought about marrying anyone other than Laura. I plan to live alone for the rest of my life. I said this and showed my respect. Then my father-in-law made another surprising statement. That's even better. Our interests align perfectly. What? What do you mean? I was completely lost by the true meaning of his words, so I asked again. He then suggested, can I call Emily herself? I was confused, but I agreed. When my father-in-law called for Emily, she quietly entered, probably from the next room. She sat down in the chair next to her father, across from me. I'd seen Laura and Emily get along many times, but I can't say I'm close to Emily myself. We've only had a few one-on-one conversations, and I thought Emily would be in trouble if she asked me to marry her. I'm really sorry for this sudden request, but Emily insisted, my father-in-law said. I was shocked again when my father-in-law said that. What Emily did made me even more confused. Seeing my confusion, my father-in-law said, you guys talk about this together, and left the room. There was a moment of silence, and then Emily said, I'm really sorry for suddenly making such a rude request. I think the last time we met, she was still a student. I was relieved to see she hadn't changed much from her humble and polite demeanor back then, despite such an absurd request. Well, yes, I replied hesitantly, unsure of how to respond. Emily began to explain the situation. I have a fiancé, but he was someone my father chose for me. I thought such situations only existed in dramas, I said. Being the daughter of a big company CEO must be tough. My father loved my bright, kind, and intelligent sister, Laura, and he always said he wanted you to take over the company. Losing both of them, I think he's desperate for an heir. Laura and Emily had no brothers. I guess the company really is in trouble with the successor issue. That's why he wants to marry me off quickly and prepare the next heir. But I don't want to get married, not ever. Emily's eyes showed a strong resolve, clearly indicating her aversion to marriage. It felt intrusive to ask why she didn't want to marry, so I asked what concerned me most. Then why do you want to marry me? She didn't seem to have any affection for me. Emily hesitated before looking me in the eye and saying, I thought everything would be neatly resolved with you. It's selfish of me. I don't want to marry, but I have to for my father. But I don't want to be in a romantic relationship. Initially, I thought it impossible to find someone who felt the same about marriage and love, but then I remembered you said the same at my sister's funeral. That's why I'm making this selfish request. I'm sorry. I finally understood why I was being asked such an absurd thing. Of course, I don't intend to have a marital relationship or children. If you join my father's company, you could become the next CEO, and the compensation would be substantial. I'll try to meet any questions or demands you have, so please consider it. Emily said this. Aside from the fact of becoming my sister-in-law's husband, there was no particular reason for me to refuse. I'm not passionate about my current job, so working for my father-in-law, who needs me, seems like a way to be useful to someone. I have no siblings and my parents have already passed away, so entering or leaving a family register wouldn't affect anyone. The most important fact is Emily's desperation, to the point of proposing such an unusual solution. If my marriage can help resolve this situation, it might be worth considering. However, the problem is that she is Laura's sister. Even though there are circumstances, I wonder what Laura would think if she knew I married Emily and lived with her. Even if it's not a romantic relationship, it might not sit well with her. Of course, Laura has passed away and wouldn't know, but I still didn't want to do anything that might sadden her or make me unable to face her, even if it seemed minor. What should I do? My own feelings are strong, but Emily's desperate plea is also reaching me. That's why I couldn't respond immediately, creating an awkward silence. Then Emily stood up, her eyes filled with tears. I know it's not something I should ask of my sister's husband, but please, I'm begging you. Although I couldn't see her face, I could tell she was crying just by her voice and trembling shoulders. At that moment, I suddenly remembered seeing a similar scene in the past. Back then, still in her school uniform and quite innocent, Emily would cry so much she couldn't speak. Laura would embrace and comfort her several times, saying, it's okay, it's okay. I love you no matter what, Emily. I'm always on your side. Laura's words would change Emily's expression, and then, always with a smile, she would say, thank you, sis, and leave. Remembering this, I finally made up my mind. If Laura could see us now, I felt like she would say, I'm fine, so please take care of Emily. I understand, I'll accept it, I said. Hearing my words, Emily expressed her gratitude many times, and so I ended up living a married life with my deceased wife's sister, Emily. But in reality, it was nothing like a marriage. We would eat separately, do our own laundry and dishes, and set up a rotation for cleaning the common areas. Since we both worked, there was no financial interference. It was more like sharing a room with a stranger, so we made thorough rules. Thank you for accepting my proposal, Emily said on her first day at our house. Politely, she went straight to Laura's altar and prayed for a long time. This was the house Laura and I lived in. The thought of living with Emily, whom Laura adored, made me wonder what Laura would think. That day, it took so long to move in and organize Emily's belongings that before we knew it, it was night. I'm going to the convenience store since we don't have much. Do you want me to buy anything? I asked Emily as she was organizing her room. Suddenly surprised by my question, Emily seemed to accidentally bump her arm into the shelf. Are you okay? I asked in surprise. I'm fine, sorry, could you please get pasta for me? Emily replied. Such casual conversations had ceased completely since Laura passed away. It was a bittersweet feeling, missing Laura and feeling lonely with someone who wasn't her. I decided to eat in the living room after returning from the convenience store. It was awkward as we had hardly ever talked one-on-one, but avoiding each other by eating in separate bedrooms felt too blatant and disrespectful. While absent-mindedly eating my ready meal, I noticed what looked like a bruise on Emily's arm. Is that from when you hit yourself earlier? Are you sure you don't need to ice it? Upon hearing my words, Emily quickly covered her arm with her sleeve. I felt something was off but didn't think much of it at the time. Was it insensitive of me to bring up the bruise? I decided not to mention it again. However, Emily's puzzling behavior continued. When Emily tried to do the dishes after dinner, I suggested, I'll take care of it. You can continue with your room. As I turned around to switch places, Emily quickly covered her neck and turned toward me abruptly. Her expression seemed panicked and angry, so I involuntarily said, Oh, I'm sorry. I reflected on whether my sudden approach had startled her. I thought I had maintained a proper distance, but, I'm the one who should apologize. Thank you for the dishes, Emily said quickly and then rushed to her room. By this point, I already had a vague sense of unease, and that turned into certainty just before going to bed. After finishing my bath, my bedroom is right before the bathroom, so I could have gone straight to bed. I thought it would be rude not to say anything, so I headed to the living room where Emily was. Emily was praying at Laura's altar, and seeing her devotion made me feel a bit warmer. thinking about the close bond between the sisters. As she finished praying and I was about to tell her I was going to bed, I noticed a suspicious bruise on the back of her neck. From a distance, it looked like a mark left by something tightly wrapped around it. After observing her behavior throughout the day, I had a gut feeling that I couldn't just leave it be and asked, "What happened to that bruise?" I knew she might not like it, but I asked anyway. Emily turned around, surprised, and then tried to evade the question. Emily struggled to find her words. Sensing she had a difficult situation to discuss, I patiently waited for her next words, which came sooner than expected. "I can't believe you agreed to marry me, listening to such a huge, selfish request. I can't keep secrets from you." Then Emily rolled up her sleeve to reveal her arm, and I was shocked at what I saw. Her arm was covered in bruises of various shapes and ages. I was abused by the person I was dating. Being hit, burned. It was a daily occurrence, and I became numb to it. I knew I had to leave, but I couldn't because I loved him. I grew to hate myself more and more for being so weak, Emily said painfully. It pained me to hear Emily speak so openly. I realized why she was so scared when I went behind her. It reminded her of her traumatic experiences. But I was dumbfounded when he dumped me so abruptly, saying he found someone else he liked. I endured so much pain just because I didn't want to be hated by him. Yet to be let go so easily was a shock more than anything. I was surprised by how sad I felt about the breakup, even though the days had been so tough. The range of negative emotions on her face was palpable. Sadness, frustration, fear. It pained my heart to see her like this, so different from the smiling face she used to show Laura. Since then, I tried to start new relationships through friends' introductions, but I developed a fear of men. Even a slight touch from a bump makes me tremble with fear, and just talking to them sets my heart racing. I used to dream of a normal life, getting married, having kids. But now I realize those dreams might never come true. I learned the hard way that the scars of abuse are lifelong issues, something I wish I'd realized sooner. And then, as if oblivious to her condition, my father-in-law-to-be announced our engagement. The thought of marriage was impossible for her with her fear of men. Indeed, in this situation, it would be unfair to the person she'd marry. Emily, desperate to avoid marriage, thought of me since I knew her from before and wouldn't demand a romantic relationship given her condition. Plus, it would please her father. That's how she came to the idea of marrying me. "I'm so sorry for involving you in my selfishness. My sister might even be angry. What am I doing?" Emily broke down, all her pent-up emotions collapsing. She cried endlessly, tears flowing one after the other, words unable to capture her pain. It was reminiscent of the times when Laura was there, but now there's no Laura to comfort and reassure her. But I'm still here, just like back then. I may not be able to replace Laura, but I can carry on her legacy. Laura would definitely not be angry. She always said she wanted to be on your side no matter what. I'm sure Laura still wishes for your happiness more than anyone else. It's true that Laura isn't here anymore, but her love for you hasn't disappeared. So let's calm down and really think about what will make you happy. Emily nodded through her tears as I spoke. Then, after she had calmed down, I made a confession. First of all, I hadn't registered our marriage yet. I showed her the paperwork for the marriage filled out and meant to be registered today. There was no rush, so I decided to bring it back home to make sure this was really what she wanted. Emily was surprised, but I now think it was for the best. The wounds in your heart are immeasurable. Healing them might not be easy, but as long as you still have the true desire to someday marry someone you love and have children, I want to honor that wish. I'll do anything to support you as your brother-in-law. Perhaps her true feelings have been buried under fear, haste, and consideration for her parents, but Emily's true hope was indeed here. "Yes, thank you so much," Emily said, tears welling up again. Consequently, Emily and I were able to escape a last-minute marriage and began living new lives. Naturally, we no longer shared a residence. Her parents understood when we told them what was going on. Emily started going to a mental health center. My late wife Laura and I were no longer officially married, but our familial bonds persisted. As Laura's spouse, I formally assumed the role of heir per her father's wishes. My decision to only marry Laura hasn't altered, but I now have supportive in-laws and a sister-in-law, despite the fact that we are not blood relatives. I feel like I'm not living my life alone because of this alone. I first believed that marrying my late wife's sister was a ridiculous idea, but I am now in this life because of that proposition. In retrospect, I believe it must have had some significance. I now feel that way about it. I'm willing to wager that Laura would say the same thing if she were to meet us.